What is going on, everybody? It's your boy John, and welcome back to Gearbox. So today we are in the wonderful, the magnificent Mk5 Toyota Supra, and yes, we will be talking about it today. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and throw this out there. It is currently the 3rd of July, and it's like 2:30 in the afternoon, and I'm just ready for a long weekend, so figured what better way to kick it off as a Ferrari 488 just pulls past me than to start filming a video. So here we are. Now, by the title and thumbnail of this video, you're probably well aware of the topic at hand, and that is going to be the biggest debate, I would say, probably, in the car community, and that is automatic versus manual transmissions. But more specifically, we're talking about the automatic versus manual transmission in the Mk5 Supra. This is a topic that I've wanted to talk about for a while, but really have just wanted to film kind of other things first type of deal. But it is something that I definitely want to address, right? As some of you may or may not know, the Mk5 Supra came out in 2020, I believe. This is a 2022 model year, but kind of the revamping of the Supra name came about in 2020. And a lot of people were kind of disappointed with the fact that it was only offered in an automatic, 8-speed automatic transmission. And for most people, that's fine. They just like the idea of having a Supra. But when you get down to the nitty-gritty and you're true enthusiasts of the platform, they're like, guys, Toyota, BMW, why aren't you offering this in a 6-speed manual? And I feel like, you know, it comes with good reason, right? This is a sports car, and a very legendary sports car at that. We need to stay true to the roots of the Supra and offer that manual transmission. But obviously, as Toyota has paired up with BMW in this case to develop this car, you know, it's not just Toyota that's calling the shots here for the design. You know, we're on a Z4 chassis. We're using the B58, at least for this specific car, B58 inline turbocharged 6-cylinder motor, and therefore we have to pair that up with a BMW transmission. Now, that's not to say we couldn't pair it up with like an M3 or an M4 type transmission, if that makes sense. Both of those use the B58 motor, but they just didn't decide to do that. Now, fast forward to, I guess, January of this year, when I was in the market for a Mk5 Supra. At this point in time, I had the option. Do I want an automatic or do I want a manual? And I drove, for a lot of you guys probably know this, a 2019 Subaru WRX prior to owning the Supra. And it was awesome. That manual transmission, loved it. It was great, had no issues with it. And ultimately, like most car enthusiasts, enjoy the process of feeling connected to the car versus having an automatic transmission that's just not as inspiring, if that makes sense. So as I was buying this, all of those bits and pieces of information, do I want a third pedal? Do I not? Do I want it in, you know, the true Mk5 form as far as the automatic transmission versus, you know, by the 6-speed? And on top of all of that, price. Contrary to most, you know, cars and situations with cars nowadays, automatics used to be the more expensive transmission when it was newer technology, but now manuals are more expensive. And in this platform, in my opinion, a considerable amount more expensive, you know, along the lines of 8 to 10 grand in some cases. So all of those things were going through my head, and obviously, I ultimately decided on the automatic, and I'm here to tell you why. First things first, I would love the opportunity to drive a 6-speed manual Supra because I have not done that yet. Although I do think it would be a great experience, especially when comparing, you know, my situation with this car versus the manual gearbox and see what differences and nuances that brings. But what it ultimately came down to was, in my opinion, with this car and the amount of power we're talking about and torque and just overall, let's call it street ability, I think that this automatic transmission serves the purpose better than a manual. And I know, boy do I know, that I am about to get shit on in the comments down below, but hear me out. I think daily driving this with an automatic is obviously going to be less, I don't know, cumbersome, let's call it. And that's fine, but as any 6-speed manual driver knows, when you drive it often enough, it doesn't matter. Like, it's second nature. So that's kind of a moot point. Now, the main point that really stood out to me was the fact that I eventually want to track this car. So it's not just a creature comfort automatic versus manual, but then we start talking about, you know, shifting times and being able to really and truly wring everything out of this car that you possibly can on the track and not have to worry about money shifting or not have to worry about your reaction time versus a computer's reaction time. You know, all of these little tiny things that, you know, in practice day to day don't really matter whatsoever, but the second you get it out on a track, it's gonna cut down on lap times and it's going to just allow you to be fully present with the car and just eliminate one more thing that could potentially take your eye off the prize, so to speak. And I want to also throw this out there. I'm no seasoned veteran when it comes to track driving. I've driven on a track 3 times now, and I love every bit of it. And by the way, every time I've been on track, it's been with an automatic or like a dual clutch transmission, not a 6-speed third pedal, you know, manual gearbox, right? So all of those things really led me to the promised land of, let's go with the automatic. Yes, we still have the paddles. Yeah, we can still drop a gear and disappear. You know, it's not like I'm driving a Camry, for Christ's sake. You know, we are driving a sports car, but it's a little more relaxed and you can really focus on, you know, the car itself and not the transmission. And I know, once again, I know that people are going to lose their shit on me in the comments, but just think rationally for a second. Like, I know a lot of people have this idea that it's either manual transmission or bust, and in a lot of ways I do agree with that, but I do think that certain cars warrant a manual transmission and certain cars warrant an automatic or a dual clutch. It's not necessarily a one or the other. Let's take a Miata, for example. I'm too big to drive Miatas, but lower horsepower from factory. Lower horsepower, big emphasis on handling. You know, you're not going to go anywhere quick in it, but you're going to have fun. Go with the manual. That's the ultimate way to drive a Miata. But then you take like a, I don't know, an Aventador, right? To my understanding, there's no such thing as a third pedal manual gearbox Aventador. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. But I don't believe that is a thing. It's all automatic transmission, and sure, you can throw the paddle shifters in there and have your little fun as a little car enthusiast, but at the end of the day, it's an automatic. That's going to, basically, the car was designed for that. You're not fitting a square peg in a round hole. And that's the same way that I feel with this transmission here. This is the way the car was designed, and the 6-speed manual was an afterthought. So why go with the afterthought when you can go with the forethought and what the car was engineered to work with, if that makes sense. Now, the last thing I want to talk about as it relates to comparing the automatic versus manual in this car is the fact that one is a 6-speed in the manual configuration, and this is the 8-speed. Now, to most people in most driving situations, that really doesn't matter, but to a true car enthusiast, it can make a world of difference. And what I mean by that is, because you're working with more gears and different gear ratios, you're theoretically able to stay in a more optimal rev range with the engine and the transmission to get the most out of your car from a horsepower and torque perspective. Now, once again, as I'm driving down this road right here, does that matter? No. But when I am doing some spirited driving, let's call it, or when I eventually get this thing on track, that is where you make your money. That is where you have success with the platform. Having those 2 additional gears, it might not seem like a lot, but in reality, it's a huge difference. Now, if they made an 8-speed manual gearbox, 3-pedal, that's a whole different story. But right now, as it sits, this is the optimal platform. And it really all goes back to the point of this car was originally designed with the automatic transmission in mind, not a manual. And so when it comes to fully experiencing and enjoying the car, I feel like that is the main thing that needs to be taken into consideration. Yeah, there's aftermarket mods. Yep, there's power mod. You know, there's all this shit that you can do to your car to make it better, whether it's automatic or manual. But out of the box, straight from factory, automatic's where it's at. Stamp it, whatever. That's where Gearbox is at, and I'm happy to report it today. So guys, that is going to do it for another episode of Gearbox. If you have any comments, as I'm sure you do, please drop them in the comment section down below. If you like this video, please give it a big fat thumbs up. And as always, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. You know the drill. And until next time, peace.
留在自己那张脏乱的床，手摆好姿态对我装上了。